Jimmy? Jimmy? What's going on? Thanks. I really needed that.
Servus Freunde, my name is Jimmy Cage.
And I'm Deniz, the Buddymeister. And today's Indian horror movie in our ongoing Halloween Horror Mayhem special is Raat from 1992, directed by Gopal Varma and starring Revathi in the leading role. It became kind of a cult classic over the years, and as far as we can tell, and we watched our fair share of Indian horror movies by now, it is also a movie that stands out.
One thing that I noticed immediately is its proximity to the giallo genre, which I'm a huge fan of. It goes back to the Italian cinema of the 1960s, and two of the most noteworthy representatives are probably the directors Mario Bava and Dario Argento. The genre had a huge influence on filmmakers all around the globe, and though supernatural horror elements were only a part of a very few of those movies, more often it was about detective elements and slasher tropes, the high emphasis on a very stylish and effective presentation in Raat definitely reminded me of those old Bava and Argento movies.
The story of Raat, which translates to night, is a mix of haunted house and demonic spirit. The Sharma family moves into a new house where all of a sudden strange things start to happen, and where the daughter, Minnie, seems to be possessed. I think that's it.
It's a classic story. Thin as paper, but in capable hands, it has the potential to make for a good horror movie. And apart from the giallo genre, you can find a lot of influences in Raat, from The Exorcist and Evil Dead to A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Raat has kind of a western feel to it, for once because its presentation reminded us of a lot of those mentioned horror movies, but also because there are several western pop culture connections, from Michael Jackson to Mickey Mouse, but not in a pandering way. I guess they're not really references, but probably just what people in 1992 had in their lives.
Taking all of it aside, Raat is still able to speak in its own voice. It lends a lot of stuff from here and there, but it never becomes a mere copy of its role models. Gopal Varma obviously had a clear and unique vision of what he wanted to create, visually and auditory.
And that's not by chance. Varma experimented a lot with his films, especially at the beginning of the 1990s. He tried new things. He's actually the first director in India who used a Steadicam for the movie Shiva in 1990. But he also experimented with the settings of his stories. He made a lot of horror movies that take place in a specific environment, be it in a house or in the jungle, for example.
Raat has a distinct atmosphere right from the beginning. A very cool and stylish beginning with an Evil Dead style camera that's following Minnie. The music by Mani Sharma plays a big part in that scene as well, with hard electronic beats and pumping rhythms. The story might be thin as paper, but Raat is a feast for the senses.
I think it's only a small part in the middle of the movie where things drag a bit and not much is happening. I think that's also where you noticed and tried to explain to me that there is something missing in regards to the horror. Do you remember?
Yeah, it's when I realized that Raat is a bit more style than substance. I think in the best horror movies, the horror element is not just there to scare the audience and mess up the characters in the story, but it's also a manifestation and expression of something that's going on in their lives. A certain fear or trauma, the anxiety of growing up, dealing with a sudden change or something like that. And sure, the family just moved in that new house and we find out that something gruesome has happened there many years ago, but apart from that, Minnie seems to be a very happy-go-lucky ordinary girl, and it seems a bit random why she's the one that's possessed. The same goes for what the spirit chooses to do and how it does it.
It's very sketchy and superficial, just the bare minimum that you need to make a horror movie. I think that also shows when you look at the specific horror scenes, which are oftentimes encapsulated. They're not developed organically through the story. You could probably arrange them in another way and the movie would still work. That's not saying that the scenes themselves aren't good, they are, but they sometimes do not lead to anything. For example, these first-person shots from the neighbor's house, where the old lady lives.
I guess those should just foreshadow that her role in all of this will be bigger later on. The movie works because of its great atmosphere and the universal appeal of the story. I mean, what's not to like about a good old haunted house demon spirit exorcism story that's technically executed in such a great way? Raat really pulls you in with the great camera work and music. It has a really dense and tense atmosphere, even if it doesn't really escalate all that much.
Absolutely, and Revathi, who plays our protagonist Minnie, is also fantastic in the role.
I love her. I really do. I thought she was great in Devasuram, and in Raat she has to carry the whole movie, which she effortlessly does by her great screen presence. So many good horror movies rely on memorable leading ladies, and Revathi is awesome in Raat.
She has that innocent neighbor girl next door vibe, and to see her becoming this possessed force is really nice.
She's able to walk that fine line between innocent girl and terrifying demon. Every time she puts on that sinister smile, you know that things aren't going to end well.
I really like those quiet scenes where she just doesn't react to anything, like during the phone call with her boyfriend Deepak. Just this stoic expression and you don't know what's gonna happen. And all of a sudden she's back to normal. And that's part of the horror for me.
It's Revathi's movie, up until the very end when someone else steps in to save the day.
The one who saves the day is Dr. Sunny Joseph.
Wrong movie, bud.
The one who saves the day is the shaman Sharji, played by Om Puri. The old lady from the house next door reveals what happened in the house where Minnie lives and that Sharji is the only one who's able to help. So they get him, he comes to the house, makes a hole in the floor, finds the demon or spirit of the woman that was killed there years ago, conducts some kind of exorcism, and that's it.
The finale in itself is decent, although I have to come back to something that I said earlier. It's handled a little bit too easily. It fits the superficiality of the whole movie, but it's also a bit lazy. We learn absolutely nothing about Sharji, and the wise words that he speaks in the end also seem like nothing but hot air.
They do. The world lives in darkness and we have to find the light, the path to redemption, I don't know. But it also doesn't matter, because all in all, Raat is a stylish, entertaining horror flick that probably deserves its status as a cult classic of Indian cinema.
I agree. We've seen a lot of Indian horror movies by now, and Raat is definitely on the better side of things.
So what would we say in German about Raat?
Raat ist ein gelungener Horrorfilm, der sich an den Klassikern des Genres orientiert, ohne eine bloße Kopie derer zu werden. Zwar ist das Motto ganz klar Style over Substance, aber die gruselige Atmosphäre und die fantastische Leistung von Revathi lassen keine Langeweile aufkommen. I give Raat 7 out of 10. It's more like 6.9, but I don't do that.
For me, it's also a 7 out of 10. It's more like 6.7, but I don't do that either. Did you know that there's a little village in Switzerland in the canton of Zurich that's called Raat?
Oh my god, didn't know that. So, what are your thoughts about Raat? Leave a comment and hit me up on Twitter, Instagram and Letterboxd, and also on Patreon, simply at the Jimmy Cage.
And you can hit me up on Twitter at the Buddymeister.
And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, whatever you like, and make sure you hit that bell for all we have to tell.